Hi guys, hi George, hi Carlos. Thanks for joining the Startups Innovation webinar. Today we're going to talk about music audience exchange.
Hi, Alistair.
Hello, Alistair. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, nice to
Thanks. So maybe George, can you introduce yourself, and then Carlos, and we'll get started with the questions.
Sure. George Howard, one of the co-founders, along with Carlos, and our CEO, who's not on the call here, sadly, Nathan Hanks, of Music Audience Exchange. And I've been sort of working in the music industry for most of my life. I think I started as a guitar player, and that's probably how I'll end up. But in the middle, somewhere along the way, I sort of realized that I was put on this planet to try to help artists create sustainable careers in the music business, and everything I do is kind of a byproduct of that. And so that's involved, running some pretty big record companies and starting some music business companies and managing artists and, getting a law degree and teaching and all sorts of things. But it always comes down to just trying to help artists build sustainable careers on their own terms. And Max is very, very consistent with that impetus. And I think I'm getting better at it. So I think Max is the best.
That's awesome, and we'll talk about music audience in a minute. Carlos, what about you? Can you?
Sure. The one thing George didn't tell you is he's our music guru. Just so you know.
Yes.
He's our music guru. So I've been with Max with George since the beginning, and Nathan Hanks as well. And my career has been spent primarily building sales forces, driving revenue, a lot of experience in digital. I've always had a passion for music, played instruments for many, many years. So this just seemed like a really incredible opportunity to do something special and to help the music world as well as artists, as George just mentioned, and do something that really is compelling for audiences and that can change the way brands market. So that's kind of my story.
Excellent, and I'm very thrilled to have you both and to be able to present Music Audience Exchange to the community of entrepreneur of startups innovation. I'm sure they're going to find this, useful. And let's go ahead and go into the questions.
Great, thanks for having us. By the way, man, thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Important conversations, yeah.
Yep. So maybe to get the situation grounded a little bit, could you share a little bit your views, your perspective on the music industry landscape today? So it's one of the industry that has been disrupted, right, 10 years ago, and so where is it today? What is happening, and what's the landscape in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in on that real quick. So yeah, disruption's one of these words that gets volleyed around too much these days. I frame it up in the Clayton Christensen sense of the word. He's an author of a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, and what he referred to as a company being disrupted is that in any industry, oftentimes they get big and they sort of super serve a group of constituents, their customers, but because of that focus on existing customers, they lose track of changes in the marketplace, changes in customer demand at the sort of margins. And by the time they realize that the customers want something different, it's often too late. And you see this happen in lots and lots of industries. But just because a new business emerges and an old business goes away, it's not necessarily disruption. It can just be sort of evolution. But the music industry, as I see it today, is at what I'd call sort of its fourth stage of disintermediation, right? And by that, I mean, we had a music industry that in the early days, it was, I'm an artist and I need a label to fund my recording. And I'm willing to give up the rights to my copyright in order to get that funding and go into a studio. And then in the early 90s or whatever, Pro Tools comes along and allows people to start making their own recordings. But then the labels go, yeah, but you still need us for distribution. And then companies like CD Baby and TuneCore that I was involved in and others come along and say, we can get distribution for you. And then the labels go, yeah, but you artists still need us for promotion. And then along comes social media and artists go, I don't know, now I can get my music, directly in front of my fans, right? To a degree. And music audience exchange is in large part sort of making that path happen. But the fourth wave of disintermediation is this one around transactions, where we're going to start seeing artists transacting much more efficiently without middle people with their fans. And that's where we are now. So no, it is not recovered, but it is reinventing itself, right? So you've got to sort of bifurcate the traditional music industry, which is what most people think of, versus now the technology industry that has a layer of music or a focus on music. And that's, I think Max really symbolizes that, transformation, that disruption. What we're doing at Max is actually way more disruptive in the classical sense of the word because of what we're doing with brands and radio than the music industry writ large.
Great, thanks, George. So the next question is maybe linked to the first question. So, what can other industry learn from how people, senior executives, C-level executive, how they reacted to those evolutions? In the music industry, in your eyes, did they, react well? And what can we learn from that, from another industry perspective?
Well, yeah, and again, I don't mean to dominate. I want to let Carlos talk, but the music business has and still is what I've called for a long time, and people sort of steal this from me, but I said it first. Damn it, a canary in a coal mine. In other words, as the music industry goes for a variety of reasons, so then goes other industries. What can you learn from this? Well, you can learn sort of values, right? I mean, the music industry started on this sort of original sin of obfuscation between customers and suppliers and stuff. That's never great. That's never a great place to start, and it tends to catch up to you. So leading with sort of a purpose and ethics and all those things. Also, suing your customers is generally not the best sort of idea in the world, right? All of that said, it's really easy to sort of throw rocks at the music industry and say, oh, you guys should have done it differently, and maybe they, whoever should have. But it was a very seismic shift. I think the key takeaway, and I think companies have learned it, this idea that you constantly need to at least have some part of your company or someone at your company. I mean, one of the interesting things about the music industry still today, they don't have R&D. There's only one, and it just happened within the last 4 or 5 months, one major label with a CTO. One. Right, so that they got very insulated and refused to look at any type of analogs. Right, the music industry would never say, "Well, gee, I wonder what we could learn from food, or what we could learn from the alcohol industry, or any of these other industries." And it was very strange, very myopic, and very sort of ego-driven. And so, one of my sort of gurus is this guy Jim Collins, and he talks about how you kind of have to pull back the ego a little bit and listen and be more open. And I think great business people are, and there's certainly great business people in the music industry that are doing it. But for a while there, we got very, very sort of tunnel vision.
Great, that's very interesting. Carlos, do you have anything you want to add there?
No, George is answering them so well. I have nothing to add till we get to some of the other questions.
Yes. So the next question, the commencement speech of George at Berklee. You shared some very passionate views on the music industry and the power of music in the world.
Yeah.
And can you maybe refresh everyone?
Sure. No, I appreciate you mentioning that, and that was a high honor, man, and a high responsibility. I think to sum it up really fast, you should just link to it. I don't want to, but to sum it up really fast, the idea, the thesis is that laws and legislation follow culture, right? And so the duty, the honor, the obligation, and also the wonderful opportunity of those of us who create culture. And one of the things I'm really proud about Max is that we all kind of come from this lens of either being avid musicians ourselves or just massive music fans. So there's a big cultural component to Max, but the idea that culture can lead change and that art can lead change, I think isn't talked enough about. And I mean seismic change, right? And if we had more time, I could track back very logically and very defensively like that big cultural changes around civil rights and gay rights and all those types of things had at their impetus art of some kind. And so we sometimes question, I think erroneously, the value of art. And my thesis in that speech was really just that this is a big core true value of art, that it does allow for us to sort of lead important cultural moments. But there's more to the speech. I'm not going to just redo it.
Yes, and indeed, well, I'll highly recommend everyone to watch the commencement speech.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks.